In life, there comes a moment when the loudest voices are not outside of us, but within us. The heart carries memories, attachments, fears, and desires. It speaks in many ways, sometimes in whispers, sometimes in storms. But true strength arises when the heart learns to be silent. For in that silence we discover clarity, healing, and freedom. The heart often speaks in ways we do not fully recognize. It carries the echoes of our past, the weight of our regrets, the hopes for our future. Sometimes it shouts with longing, sometimes it murmurs with fear. And because of this constant noise, we often confuse its voice with truth. But silence is different. Silence is not the absence of feeling, it is the presence of deeper understanding. When the heart learns to be silent, something remarkable happens. The mind no longer rushes to defend, to justify, or to resist. Instead, it pauses, and in that pause, understanding has room to enter. Imagine standing before a still lake. The surface reflects the sky so clearly that every detail becomes visible. Now imagine that same lake disturbed by constant waves and ripples. Nothing is clear, only fragments of light and shadow. Our hearts work in the same way. In silence, clarity reflects truth. In noise, truth becomes distorted. Most of us are trained to respond quickly, to speak before listening, to judge before truly seeing. But when the heart is silent, it allows us to listen in a new way, not only to others, but to ourselves. We begin to understand the roots of our own emotions, why anger rises, why sadness lingers, why certain memories hold us captive. Silence does not erase these things, it illuminates them. It shows us what we have been avoiding, and in showing, it invites us to release. And perhaps the greatest gift of silence is that it teaches us presence. The heart, when noisy, lives either in the weight of the past or in the shadows of the future. But when it is silent, it rests here in this moment. And here in this moment, we see life not as we imagine it, but as it truly is. We live in a time where silence is often feared. The moment we feel it, we rush to fill it with noise, conversations, music, distractions, endless scrolling. But behind all that noise, the heart remains restless, carrying wounds that no amount of distraction can erase. Healing is not found in running from pain, but in giving it space to breathe. And space is created through stillness. Think of a wound on the body. If we keep scratching it, if we keep disturbing it, it cannot heal. The same is true with the heart. Every time we revisit our pain with restless thought, every time we replay old stories, we reopen the wound. But when the heart becomes still, when we stop feeding the cycle of noise, healing naturally begins. Stillness is the medicine that allows the inner scars to close. It is in silence that we learn to feel honestly. We cannot heal what we refuse to feel. Many people try to push away sadness, anger, or grief. They cover it with laughter, with busyness, with denial. But silence strips away those masks. It brings us face to face with the truths we have been hiding from. And though that meeting may be uncomfortable, it is the first step toward freedom. Stillness also teaches patience. Just as the seasons take their time to turn, just as winter cannot be forced into spring, the heart's healing cannot be rushed. Silence reminds us that growth is slow, but it is certain. It teaches us to trust that in our stillness, life is quietly working within us. Every thought we think, every word we speak, every action we take carries energy. This energy is not always visible, but it is always felt. Some words uplift while others drain. Some thoughts empower while others weaken. A heart that is noisy, restless, or unsettled wastes energy without even realizing it. It spends its strength on unnecessary battles, on endless comparisons, on the desperate search to be validated or understood. In this way, a noisy heart becomes like a river with too many leaks. No matter how strong the current, the water escapes and the flow becomes weaker. When the heart learns silence, something changes. Energy is no longer scattered, but gathered. It is no longer wasted on arguments that prove nothing or on anger that consumes more than it heals. Silence becomes a guardian protecting the fire within. That inner fire, once preserved, becomes the source of resilience. It allows a person to face challenges without collapsing, to endure struggles without burning out, to carry pain without being destroyed by it. We often underestimate how much of our energy is lost through noise. Consider how much strength it takes to defend yourself against every criticism, to answer every insult, to explain your worth to those who have already chosen not to see it. The noisy heart feels compelled to respond, to fight, to be heard. But the silent heart does not need to. Silence is not weakness. It is mastery. It is the realization that not every battle deserves your presence, not every opinion requires your defense, not every conflict needs your participation. Energy, once preserved, becomes focus. A scattered mind cannot achieve depth. A restless heart cannot hold steady. But silence channels energy into what matters most. Instead of wasting fire on fleeting distractions, it directs that fire into growth, into discipline, into creation. Just as a sharpened blade is more powerful than one swung wildly, a silent heart holds its energy with precision. It knows when to act, and it knows when to remain still. This balance is power. There is also a deeper layer to silence as protection. Silence shields us from the weight of unnecessary words. Words once spoken cannot be taken back. Many wounds in life are created not by weapons but by speech. The noisy heart speaks in haste, driven by impulse, by anger, by ego. It pours out energy in ways that cannot be undone. But the silent heart measures carefully. It does not rush to speak because it does not need to. Its silence protects not only its own strengths but the peace of those around it. Silence also protects against the subtle drain of comparison. A noisy heart looks outward constantly. Am I enough? Am I better? Am I behind? Every comparison takes energy, leaving us tired, discontent, and restless. But when the heart grows silent, it no longer seeks validation in the eyes of others. Its energy is turned inward toward self-mastery, toward growth that does not need to be witnessed or applauded. The silent heart protects itself from envy and jealousy because it understands that strength does not need to shout, it only needs to endure. To understand the protective nature of silence, imagine fire in a furnace. If the furnace door is left open, the fire escapes, the heat is lost, and the flames die quickly. But when the door is closed, when the fire is contained, it burns steadily, with purpose, with endurance. Silence is that closed door. It is not a prison, but a vessel, allowing energy to remain, to build, to grow stronger. In this way, silence becomes the unseen armor of the heart. It does not fight with noise, it does not seek recognition, but it preserves the energy that would otherwise be wasted. And this preserved energy becomes the quiet strength that sustains us through the storms of life. A heart that is filled with noise is often driven by the need to be seen, to be heard, to be right. It wants to leave its mark in every conversation, to win in every argument, to prove its existence through sound. But the more a person tries to force their presence upon the world, the more they reveal their inner fragility. True strength is never loud. It does not demand recognition, nor does it insist on proving itself. This is where silence teaches humility. Humility is often misunderstood. Many believe it means lowering oneself, diminishing one's worth, or becoming invisible. But humility is not weakness. It is the art of knowing that you do not need to display your strengths for it to exist. A silent heart teaches us this. In silence, the heart no longer chases applause or recognition. It no longer insists that the world revolve around its opinions or feelings. Instead, it begins to listen. And in listening, it learns that wisdom is not found in speaking more, but in understanding more. The noisy heart is quick to react. It interrupts before others finish. It forms judgments before it sees clearly. It defends itself before it is even attacked. But the silent heart waits. It creates space. It listens not just to words, but to tone, to intention, to silence itself. Humility grows in this waiting, for to listen is to acknowledge that someone else's voice carries value. When the heart is humble, it no longer sees life as a competition of who can be the loudest. Instead, it sees life as a shared journey where each voice has its place. Humility born from silence also softens the ego. The ego thrives on noise, the need to announce, the desire to correct, the compulsion to dominate. When the heart grows silent, the ego loses its power. It no longer pushes to the front. It no longer insists on being right. It becomes smaller, lighter, less demanding, and in that lightness freedom is found. For what exhausts us most in life is not the weight of the world, but the weight of our own ego constantly pushing against it. Consider the strength of a tree. The tallest tree does not shout, nor does it demand recognition. It stands silently, rooted deeply, growing steadily. Its humility is its strength. It allows the wind to pass without resistance. It bends so it does not break, and it stands without needing to prove its greatness. A noisy heart, in contrast, is like a dry branch, brittle, quick to snap under pressure. But the silent, humble heart is like the living tree, resilient, unshaken, strong without arrogance. There is another gift that silence brings to humility, the understanding that not everything requires your response. The noisy heart wants to correct every mistake it sees, argue against every word it hears, defend against every slight it feels. But silence teaches that life is larger than your own opinions. Not every hill is worth climbing. Not every challenge deserves your energy. Sometimes humility is choosing to step back, allowing others to speak, allowing time itself to answer questions that words cannot. Humility also brings with it a deeper connection to others. When you stop filling the air with your own voice, you begin to hear the unspoken stories of those around you. You begin to sense their struggles, their hopes, their fears. This awareness cannot grow in noise, only in silence. A humble heart does not demand to be the center, but instead creates space for others to exist fully. And in creating that space, it finds its own place in the harmony of life. Perhaps the most profound lesson humility offers through silence is this: you do not need to diminish yourself to be humble. You only need to stop inflating yourself. True humility is not about thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less often. Silence naturally turns the focus away from I and allows the presence of others, of life itself, to fill the space. This is not the absence of self, but the balance of self within the greater whole. When the heart is filled with noise, it becomes clouded. Thoughts rush one after another, emotions collide, and decisions are made in haste. The mind cannot see clearly when it is restless, just as eyes cannot see clearly through stormy water. A noisy heart makes choices from fear, from anger, from impulse. It reacts instead of responding. And in those reactions, mistakes multiply, relationships fracture, and opportunities slip away. But silence is different. Silence is like the clearing of a storm, where the waters calm and the reflection becomes visible again. It is in silence that clarity begins to emerge. Clarity is not about knowing everything. It is not about predicting the future or controlling every outcome. Clarity is the ability to see what truly matters in the moment, to separate what is essential from what is unnecessary. Most people do not lack the strength to move forward in life. They lack the clarity of where to place that strength. Energy without direction is wasted. But silence provides direction. It strips away the distractions, the illusions, the endless noise of comparison and doubt, and it reveals the path that lies quietly beneath. When the heart is silent, priorities become visible. You begin to notice what really deserves your time, your focus, your love. The endless chase for approval no longer seems important. The fear of being left behind no longer controls you. Instead, silence shows you what is genuine. The people who matter, the work that fulfills, the values that give life meaning. Noise makes us chase everything, while silence guides us toward the few things worth chasing. Clarity also sharpens awareness of consequences. In noise, we act without thinking, and only later do we face the results of choices made in haste. But silence gives us space to pause, to breathe, to consider. It asks, if I choose this path, where will it lead? If I speak these words, what will they create? Silence slows us down, not to weaken us, but to make us deliberate, and from deliberate action comes wisdom. In the modern world, people are praised for speed, quick answers, fast progress, immediate reaction. But speed without clarity leads only to exhaustion. Silence reminds us that slowness is not failure. Just as a sculptor takes time to carve a masterpiece, silence allows us to carve our lives with intention. It is better to take one step in clarity than 100 steps in confusion. Another way silence sharpens clarity is by clearing the fog of emotions. Emotions are powerful guides, but when they overwhelm, they blind us. Anger narrows vision, fear exaggerates danger, desire magnifies illusion. But in silence, emotions lose their grip. They do not vanish, but they soften, allowing space for reason, intuition, and wisdom to rise. In this way, silence is not the denial of emotion, but the balance of it. It allows us to feel without being enslaved by what we feel. Clarity gained through silence also makes life simpler. Many of the things that seem urgent lose their weight when seen in silence. Much of what we stress about is temporary. Much of what we argue about is trivial. Much of what we chase is empty. Silence exposes these truths gently. It whispers that life is not meant to be lived in constant struggle for things that will not matter in the end. With this realization, decisions become lighter, choices become cleaner, and life itself feels less tangled. Perhaps the greatest gift clarity offers is peace of direction. When you know what truly matters, the noise of the world cannot easily sway you. You no longer need to chase every path because you see your path. You no longer need to argue with every voice because you know your truth. This does not mean the journey becomes easy, but it does become clear. And in clarity, there is strength. When the heart is noisy, it feels isolated. It is caught in its own storms of thought and emotion, spinning stories of separation. I am alone. I am different. No one understands me. This inner noise creates walls, cutting us off not only from others, but also from life itself. Yet when the heart learns to be silent, those walls begin to dissolve. In silence, we discover a profound truth. We are not separate. We are connected to something far greater than ourselves. Silence creates space for us to hear what has always been present but often ignored. Beneath the constant chatter of the mind, there is a quiet rhythm, the pulse of life itself. It can be felt in the beating of the heart, in the rising and falling of the breath, in the stillness of nature that surrounds us. This rhythm is not ours alone. It is shared, the same breath that sustains you, sustains every living being. The same silence that calms your heart is the silence that rests in the mountains, the forests, the oceans. In recognizing this, the heart no longer feels alone. Silence connects us back to the whole. Connection through silence is deeper than words. Often words are used to fill space, to cover discomfort, to assert control. But words can only go so far. True connection does not always need speech. Think of sitting with someone in silence, no words exchanged, no need to explain, yet a bond is felt. That bond arises not from noise, but from presence. Silence removes the need to perform, to impress, to prove. It allows us to simply be, and in that being, connection is born. Silence also connects us to the wisdom of nature. In the stillness of the forest, the mountain, or the desert, there is no noise of ego, no competition, no constant striving. There is only being. The tree does not rush to grow. The river does not argue with its flow. The stars do not need to shout to shine. Observing this in silence awakens a recognition within us. Life itself is our teacher, and we are not separate from it. The same intelligence that guides the seasons and the tides is the intelligence that moves within us. In silence, we also begin to sense the interconnectedness of human hearts. The struggles we carry, though they feel personal, are not unique. Pain, joy, fear, hope, these are shared experiences. A noisy heart focuses only on my pain, my story, my life. But a silent heart sees beyond itself. It recognizes the universal nature of human experience, and in that recognition, compassion arises. Silence softens judgment, reminding us that others too are carrying battles we cannot see. This compassion is a form of connection deeper than any conversation. There is another layer to connection that silence reveals, the connection to the infinite, to the eternal. When the heart grows silent, it touches a dimension beyond the shifting surface of life. The noise of the heart is tied to time, regrets of the past, anxieties of the future. But silence lives in the timeless present. In that stillness, we sense that we are part of something vast, something unchanging. Some call it spirit, others call it truth, others call it simply presence. Names do not matter. What matters is the direct experience, the feeling of being held by something greater than the small self. Silence is the doorway to disconnection. Without it, the noise of the heart keeps us trapped in smallness, in separation. With it, we step into the vastness of existence. We see that our lives are not isolated drops, but part of the great ocean. And in knowing this, the heart rests. It no longer feels the ache of loneliness because it knows it belongs. When the heart learns to be silent, it does not lose its voice, it finds its truest one. In silence, understanding replaces confusion, healing takes the place of restlessness, and strength is no longer scattered but preserved. Humility blossoms, clarity sharpens, and the walls of separation gently fall away. What once felt heavy becomes lighter. What once felt chaotic becomes simple. What once felt lonely becomes whole. Silence is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is the space where truth reveals itself without the need for noise. It is where wounds close, where wisdom rises, and where we remember that life is not about how loudly we can speak, but about how deeply we can listen. In learning the language of silence, the heart becomes free from the past that weighs it down, free from the future that frightens it, free from the constant struggle to prove, to argue, to be seen. In that freedom, peace is no longer something to be chased, it is something that naturally arises. So when the heart learns to be silent, life itself becomes the teacher. And in that silence, we discover that we were never truly alone, never truly broken, never truly lost. We were simply waiting for the quiet that allows us to return to ourselves, to others, and to the vastness of existence.